Shalom, welcome to our watercolor journey. Heinrich is showing off the magical granulation properties of French Ultramarine today. The materials used are listed in the description below. On the palette, we have Venetian Red, French Ultramarine, and burnt Sienna. The paper is taped to the board and it is flat on the table. He uses the Hwahong No. 1 Hake brush to wet the entire paper. Then he starts off with a premix of French Ultramarine and Venetian Red for the sky. He adds the three colors as needed, and if you have been following us for a while, you will know that he usually does not clean his brush between loads, which gives him gorgeous color variations. He generously tilts the board from side to side and up and down to allow the paint to spread. You can clearly see the marvelous granulation effect that comes with a French Ultramarine on the very wet paper. He lays the board flat again, and with a slightly stronger mix of the blue and red, he starts to add the middle ground. It is important that your pigment should be slightly thicker. If the paint is the same consistency as the first layer, you will have blooms and cauliflowers and unwanted open spots on your painting. The slightly thicker paint fuses gently into the background. He's making random tree shapes to form the background for the details. He adds clean French Ultramarine to create variation and to enhance the granulating effect. Here he uses the corner of a plastic store card to score in some lines where he wants the trees to be. Now notice something here. If you do the scoring while the paint is still very wet, you will create darker lines because the paint pulls into the scoring lines. If your paint has settled a bit, you can create highlights with the same technique, as the card will then push the paint away instead of creating little furrows for it to pull into. Now he uses a paper towel to lift out some paint to bring some light into the painting and to create clouds in the background. He presses down in a light circular motion with the tip of the paper towel. It's a good idea to have a basic plan even when you do a loose painting. It will determine where you need light and shadows. In this case, the lighter area in the middle pushes the tree line more to the background and creates an open space for the cottage. Let the painting dry naturally. If you want to use a hairdryer, make sure the paint has settled a bit, otherwise you will blow all the pigment to kingdom come. Now the background is dry. He uses a stronger mixture of French Ultramarine and burnt Sienna to create the dark grey-brown for the cottage. This is the Vinci Maestro No. 2 round brush. He grounds the cottage by adding a darker mixture underneath it. In this case, it is more French Ultramarine and a bit less burnt Sienna. The mixtures on his palette now contain French Ultramarine, Venetian Red, burnt Sienna, all mixed together, which he uses alternatively, adding a bit more and adding a bit more water so that it creates variation. Painting a diagonal area creates height and dimension in the painting. To emphasize the cottage, he painted some trees and bushes around it, starting to build the values in the painting. You always want light, middle, and dark values in your painting. It creates interest and gives dimension to your objects. He started with a mid value behind the cottage, more blue, which gives distance, and then he added a redder mix, which brings some of the foliage forward. The tree here is very dark because it is in the foreground. It will have more detail too. He used a strong mix of French Ultramarine and burnt sienna to create the almost black color. French Ultramarine and Venetian Red give a more earthy purplish color, where the burnt sienna with French Ultramarine will give you a lovely gray to dark brown to a deep black color, depending on how much you add of each of the pigments. To create the finer branches on the tree, he uses the Rosemary Co Sable blend number 0 rigger. The blend of the brush hairs gives you a wonderful balance between the softness of the sable and the spring of synthetic hairs. This brush simply dances over the paper. Take your time to make the tree branches. Each branch tells a story. There should be harmony and cohesion among all the branches and the trunk. And then ground the tree with a shadow. The trees in the background are much less prominent, so the lines are much thinner and lighter than the ones in the front. He draws the lines next to or almost on top of the lines he made with a card. This type of layering helps to create depth. He defines the white snow patch with a reddish-brown border and adds a few grasses to give it a natural look. Then he uses the side of the rigger and the dry brush technique to add some interest to the terrain with variations in color. This tree is slightly higher in the picture plane than the tree in the front to help create the illusion of distance. It is also a bit smaller with less prominent detail. This helps to balance the composition. Don't forget to ground the objects with shadows. The layout of this composition leads your eye into the painting. He signed the painting and then decided to add a few die-hard leaves that forgot to fall from the tree. And there you have it. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day. Vaya con Dios.